Hi everyone, this is Gary Wilson and welcome to this week's live Path to Profit webinar. A special welcome to everybody from the M1 group, near and dear to my heart because I'm a GoBundance Mastermind member, and many of you guys are familiar with a lot of GoBundance brothers, and a lot of us have taken you under our wings and helping you get up and running and get to your first million. So welcome aboard, and some of you have actually graduated, so kudos to you. Also welcome aboard to all the new folks in the last month or so. I just rattled off a bunch of states and towns and provinces. Now you'll notice every one of you is by default in mute mode. That's by design. It's system mandate. I mean, I can unmute you individually. I can unmute all of you, but obviously it's quite difficult to have 60, 70 people all live at the same time, or excuse me, unmuted. So you use the question box to type in your questions, okay? And I will respond to them verbally so the response is recorded. The next day, the recording does go out, audio visual recording. You can definitely use the app, YouTube to MP3 converter, and strip off the audio. That way you can make an MP3 file or copy it to disk, what have you. And way you can listen to it in your car. But for most of you, you're live online here, and for those of you who are not, of course, you'll get the recording. You'll be listening to this in recorded mode. A couple things here. There is an email that goes out the day after every one of these. Please be sure to open up the email from Beverly. Tomorrow may likely be from Jody because Beverly's off, but it'll contain information relevant to the platform and the systems and potential updates to the material. So it's really important that you pay attention to those emails and follow suit. We do regularly make updates. In fact, we're going to be making some updates to the Canadian version of Module 1, mainly because Canada Post has made some updates in their systems. So in any case, please keep an eye out for that. I can't think of anything else at this point. Also, one more thing. Obviously, the subject matter that we discuss on these webinars is up to you. I determine the subject based on your emails to me and our conversations throughout the week. So the subjects tonight are directly related to Gail and Billy. So thank you guys for your emails and your questions, because we're going to go over those tonight live and look for Q&A. So it's interactive. You definitely want to take advantage of the opportunity to ask questions. Everybody learns from each other's questions and answers, okay? So without further ado, I want to start with Billy's email. So Billy, your first question was in the material. Let me just go back and here it is. In Module 1, at least in most of the programs, we talk about something along the lines of planning commissions or planning commission websites. Now, the version I give you is an example of one of those planning commission websites. It's from a region, the Western Pennsylvania region. So a couple of things here, and I'm going to kind of slow down so you can take notes so you'll know how to search for these yourselves. Almost all municipalities, whether it's in US or Canada, has what's called a planning commission. And likewise, the counties in the US and Canada also have planning commissions. The purpose of those commissions is to determine where they're going to be putting in, schools, parks, bridges, roads, what have you. Now, that's important information, but more importantly to us as investors and agents who work with investors is the data that they provide. So I like the county level planning commission websites better because they generally have more information. If you're in any area that has a regional planning commission, that's even better, because what they do is they combine municipalities and even counties sometimes to form what's called a regional planning commission. And generally speaking, they provide a whole lot more data. So where they get their data from is typically your census systems. So Stats Canada, and up in Canada, and uscensus.gov in the US, okay? They also get data from your local property files, your tax assessors databases, okay? And other public sources of information. It's all public data, all the demographics, all the social graphics, everything you could possibly imagine. Certainly the bulk of it does come from the census systems in both countries, okay? Now, The reason that's important is we want to see what's really happening in our regions where we're investing, and particularly if you narrow it down, the counties, and then more specifically the towns, and more precisely the neighborhoods. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. In both census systems, they can break things down into very finite levels of detail. So for example, in the states, they have on the census, US census.gov, what's called a census tract. A tract is a small area, sort of like a neighborhood, okay? So the reason that's important is we use the information to determine, to do like a litmus test on all of our work we've done so far. In the example of, let's take the example of us looking for a property we're going to flip. You know, we're narrowing it down using our either Canada Post or US Postal Service EDDM, Every Door Direct. Specifically, it's called melissadata.com. Also in Canada, you'll see you have a lot of other resources here, right? There's nrcan.gc.ca, okay? You've also got, you know, maa.ca, that's Canada Assessment Links, okay? Now I should have another, okay, these are all Canadian version systems here, right? And by the way, all of this is on the My Investment Services website. And please write this down, guys, for especially those of you who are new. So go to myinvestmentservices.com, log into the silver level membership section, okay? Everybody got a login for that when you first signed on for your program. Scroll all the way down to the bottom, okay? And maybe we should just go through that exercise. I don't know if I have that up on my computer. Hang on one second. Let's just do that. I'll show you right on the screen here. My Investment Services, okay? So you can do screenshots of this if you want. Click on Members area right here, okay? Right here, you're going to click on Members, silver level here, right? So let's click on that. And I'm already in, that's why it didn't make me log in. But if you watch what I'm doing, I'm going to scroll down past the community site. Everybody that's an agent should be on here. For your investors, you can look on here for agents and properties, agents that work with investors and properties, okay? Newsletters, we call that the profit booster, by the way. So make sure everybody should be looking at these newsletters. I hate to call it a newsletter because it's not like your normal average everyday newsletter. There's really good stuff in there. Lots of information, okay? Market data. In any case, when you scroll down past all of the recorded webinars, every single one of them is out here, and you'll see there's obviously probably maybe 100, 150 of them. There's a lot of them on just about every subject you could possibly want. Then we get down here past interviews. I interview people every month, okay? Get past the books, and here we are. Here's all the resources. You get extra resources, marketing techniques and docs. So for the investors, we use the booklet to drum up funds, to get funding from other investors that we can partner with to buy properties. Mailer to owners of properties like apartment buildings, for example. Tax strategies for those of you who own rentals, top 10 tax strategies. Let's see, calculators, rental profits without the pain, financing doc. That's like a simple one-page financial analysis document. And here's what I'm talking about. Important resources to gather data on people and places. All right, this one has resources for US and Canada. All right, and then down here's a couple of calculators: cash flow analysis, property inspection reports, rent. This is the Excel spreadsheet for rental profit calculator, and here's the online real-time calculator. Right, it's for those financial projections on rentals. Okay, we're going to go over those in the next couple of weeks, by the way. And then finally, we just added this when we started doing our research to see what's changing in Canada Post. We came up with a bunch more resources. So that's how you locate them. Now let's go take a look at them. This one is the one that has a lot more Canadian resources. All right, you don't have to, you can do a screenshot if you want, but I just showed you where to locate that information, okay? And this one here is for people in the US and Canada. So long story short, So Billy, back to your original question. Every county and every municipality is going to have their own version of their own planning commission website. Now, there's probably close to 4,000 counties just in the U.S. alone. And by the way, for the U.S. folks, Canada and the provinces also has counties. Okay, we also have counties up there. Now, I like the county level better, but they all look different, Billy. Every single one of them has a different look and feel to it. So everywhere I've been, we've just had to Google Planning Commission for the area, go into their website and start playing with it to determine where do they keep their data. Sometimes it's kind of cryptic. That's not like they made this for us. Sometimes it'll say right out census data. Sometimes it'll say neighborhood data. Sometimes it'll say files or property data. Okay, just keep looking for that information, and what it'll let you do is drill down to finer levels of detail. Okay, you can drill down the finer levels of detail to the tract area or the neighborhood area. All right. Now, just in case you're curious, you wouldn't want to write this down, guys. I don't have it up here on the screen. For those of you who have a license, a realtor's license, you can also use a tool called RPR. That's Ronald Paul Ronald. It's a U.S. tool, okay, and it's linked to and through your MLS systems and allows you to develop all kinds of really neat reports. Right, pretty awesome tool. It's free for agents, right? There's another tool that we've actually mentioned recently called Rebo Gateway, R-E-B-O, Rebo Gateway. That is a paid service. I'm not subscribing to it now, but we can certainly go on there and play with it. If any of you want to sign up for it, let me know, and we'll pass the screen to you on a future webinar and let you show everybody what all is possible through Rebo Gateway. Pretty awesome tool. Okay, you'll see on here there's others, right? One of my favorites is this one right here, BRB Publications. Okay, it allows you to have links to all of the U.S. counties, and once you're in there, you can drill down to all of the different sources of data. Here, let's just do it. Okay. Whoops, I'm not sure what happened there. Took me back to another screen here. This is a blog we're doing right now. So let me go back and I'll cut and paste that link and put it in a new session. Let's do this. Copy. Paste, and we should get BRB. Okay, here's BRB Publications. As you can see, all the states are in here. Okay, so let's see. Billy, you're in the Golden State, California. Love it out there. And let's just type LA. LA is a huge county, by the way. And I don't know if you even knew this. For a lot of you don't know this, but Catalina Island is actually part of LA County. It's that giant. I mean, it's a huge. I mean, that island alone should be its own county. And again, it's free county public record search site. So check this out. City of LA property tax and ownership. That could be pretty important, Billy, and everybody else out there on the West Coast. Court locator, fictitious business names. So you can type in LLC names and see who actually owns them. GIS mapping. That's a huge one. We do this up in Canada too, by the way, GIS. There's also one in Canada, guys. I can't remember. It's been so long. I think it's called GLR. If any of you are on from Canada right now and you've used GLR, I think that's what it's called. Just type in the chat box what it is, because we want to. I might subscribe to that, and we want to get everybody on that. So if you're from Canada, you know what I'm talking about. I don't think it's JLR. I think it's GLR. From what I remember, it's just been a lot of years. Awesome tool to get information. So type that in for me, and I'll make sure everybody has access to it. In any case, all kinds of stuff. Property tax and ownership, like I said. You can go to all the courts and find case record, not all the case data, but records. And in other words, when people file a suit, like when they file a divorce suit, or they file for bankruptcy or foreclosure, or they file for probate, which is decedents. Now, all of that is out there, Billy. So you can get all kinds of information. You don't have to just rely on planning commission websites. So let me do just a pause here. I just want to check for questions because I just gave you guys a whole bunch of stuff, and I want to make sure everybody is okay. So hang on 1 second, and I will go through and check for questions. Okay, we've got a number of them here. So let me get to the first one. Okay, so Jonathan Salmon says, I'm getting a lot of information on foreclosures. Would you recommend me focusing on investors looking for those types of properties? Yeah, if you have a great source of data there, Jonathan, I would say always go with what God gives you. If right now you've got a strong hand on foreclosure information, use it to your advantage. Absolutely. So you can promote that in your marketing. So if you're creating booklets, letters, flyers, if you're doing Facebook posts, you can let people know that you've got the inside track on some foreclosure information. Absolutely use that to your advantage. That's a great question. Okay, Roger. Hey, Roger. Long time no see, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Hey, Gary, I just listed a new listing rental. The investor letter was the tool that got me the listing. Well, that's awesome. I tell you what, Roger, we've had a lot of by the way, for everybody on here, the two most popular tools as of late has been, number one, the workshop, okay, where you build your own group, your own investor community, okay, and number two is the letter to find inventory. And the good news is whether you're an investor or an agent, both of those two tools work very well. In fact, if a lot of you if you don't know this already, I'll just tell you, all the tools that we teach, whether we teach investors or agents, came from the investor world. We use those to get our own inventory. Like the letter, for example, was one of the best tools I had to get inventory for myself as an investor. All we did is we built a training program around that to teach agents how to work with the investors. And the workshop originally was about investors getting together with other investors. And we would use that to partner with people, find people who had money but no time, and we had time but no money. We would partner with them. And then with the agents, we build the community around the agent, who we call the investor agent. That was the workshop. So Roger, thanks for sharing that, man. That's every week we get positive feedback on that one. The letter is just awesome, you know. Okay, you're welcome, Roger. Okay, Mark, will some of these sites show tax delinquencies? Yeah, so Mark, a couple things here. Just a quick lesson on foreclosures. You know, different states have different procedures on how they actually foreclose on a property. There's different laws. There's like commonwealths, there's escrow states, there's attorney states, there's different kind of states. In Canada, it's a little bit different too, but the bottom line is this. When a property goes into foreclosure, the reality is it generally goes through a process where it's a formal legal process where the courts get involved, and sometimes it's an actual sheriff sale, you know, literally like on the courthouse steps, okay? Matter of fact, that's what's most common in the States. But the reason they go to the sheriff sale in this example, Mark, is not because the person is delinquent on the mortgage, it's because they're delinquent on the taxes. So what happens is when the mortgage is falling behind, obviously the taxes are not being paid. So what happens is because the taxes aren't being paid, the court system steps in and forces the sale of the property, okay? Now, the reason why banks take properties back is because they had such a big mortgage on the property, and maybe the taxes were a small amount relative to the mortgage. So the fact is whenever you see Mark NOD's, notice of default, okay, you can rest assured the taxes are behind. So Mark, for example, what you would do is you would go into, I still have this one up here for LA County. You could go into Court Locator or come back down here to Los Angeles Superior Courts, all right? And go in there and look for, just go by the last week, just go look at the last 7 days, you know, look for what's been filed. So when something's been filed, that gets recorded and it's public information in the States. And in Canada, you can also find this information. I'll show you that in a minute. Now you can see who's in underwater, right? Now you can also go to the tax assessor's database, Mark, okay, and pull up the individual properties and you can see how far they are behind. In most cases, you'll get the county level delinquency, and just know that if they're behind on the county taxes, they're also behind on the local taxes. It's just the local taxes generally are not shown, just the county taxes. But that's where all the action happens. Okay, the actual proceedings take place at the county level, not the municipal level. So there are a couple ways there. So easiest way is go to your property tax assessor's database, and if you think you know somebody who's in trouble, pull up the property address. You'll go to there's different fields. Go to the field that talks about taxes, and it'll show you if they're current or not, and how much they're behind if they're behind. So great question, by the way. Okay, Gregory, RPR. Yeah, it's Gregory. It is part of NAR, so it is. It's been so long for. I think it is NAR. I would just, if you go to NAR, Gregory, just go to NAR, and up on there have a little search bar in there. Type in RPR. That's the best way to do it. Okay, and is there a Canadian equivalent? Yeah, there is, but the Canadian systems, Gregory. A couple things, at least what I've seen in Ontario and Quebec, they don't provide the school information, which is unusual because most consumers are interested in the school information, like what school districts the properties are listed in. Okay, number one. Number two is there's different tools we use up there, like GIS data, GLR. Let me just go back to the document here. So here you go. You obviously got Canada Post. You've got Statistics Canada. Your property data for tax records is right here, propertyline.ca. Okay, you can see the foreclosures in Canada. Here's the court records. Now, Gregory, just bear in mind, in Canada, there's not as much information from the courts available online as there is in the States. The Canadian systems are generally more sophisticated as far as data research, but they don't make as much as data available. They have stricter privacy laws. Okay, you can also do postal code targeting, things like that. So if you look at you have to look at your particular MLS system, Gregory. There's different boards, and see what feature and functionalities they have available to you. Okay, and then you can also go to your local realtor's board and ask them if they have any other system that ties into the MLS and possibly ties also into tax records and so forth. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one right now, but I'm sure that they have equivalent versions. Quite frankly, Gregory, my best results, like in Ontario, for example, have come from me going to the courthouses directly. I've actually gotten much better results by doing that. Okay, so in any case, let's see. Next question. Okay, Mark is asking, excuse me. Hang on one second, Mark. Okay, can those delinquent searches be done generally to create a list, or must they be specific to an individual? So Mark, you can do both. Now, most systems will allow you to do a date range search, and the reason I like to do a date range search is because you don't want to go back, you don't want to be looking at properties where their filings have occurred months ago, because the data is going to be stale, and quite frankly, everybody else has already found out about them. So what I do like to do, Mark, is I like to go and do a date range search. Okay, so I would look for the last 7 days. For example, divorce. You'd be surprised at how many divorces were filed in a 7-day period. Same thing with probate. People unfortunately pass away on a regular basis. Also, people declare bankruptcy and foreclosure on a regular basis. But the reason I go back a week is it's pretty fresh data, and any other agent whose game plan is to go through the attorneys is going to get it way after me. So generally, that's the slow way, is to go through attorneys, because they're busy and they don't really have a lot of time for us. And by the time they get to it, the data's been out there for a couple weeks. I like doing my own searches. So Mark, in most cases, do a date range search if and when possible. In most cases, you should be able to do that. Okay, this is Jeff says www.NAR. Oh, there it is. It's an extra R in there. That's why I didn't look right before. NARRPR.com. So everybody write that down. NARRPR.com. Thanks, Jeff, for bringing that up. Okay, let's do this. I want to go into one more subject here before we jump into Gail's email. So let me go back here. Hang on one second. Actually, here we go. So this is for Billy and everybody else who's interested in scaling, okay? And I wonder if I can somehow turn this around. I'd probably have to go to some type of a tool to do that, but we're not going to take that time. Okay, what this is, guys, is this. If you can imagine this turned sideways, and if somebody knows how to help me turn this sideways, I'll be glad to follow your instruction. But right now, it's what I want you to picture is this thing is turned to the left 90 degrees. So the 2, 4, 6, 8 go up like this, okay? What this represents is a graphic representation showing the difference between growing horizontally, okay, and growing vertically, all right? Now, I know that the funny thing is it's, you know, I'm telling you horizontally and I'm going up and down vertically, but just turn it on the side in your imagination and you know what I'm saying here. All right, what Billy's question is, how do you grow vertically by buying bigger and better properties when you only have so much cash? And it's an excellent, excellent question. And when I learned this years ago, it literally changed how I invested, because I used to just do what's called horizontal investing. I'm growing horizontally. I'm buying the same properties over and over and over again. Now, what's interesting is this came up a couple weeks ago in my M1 presentation, and I showed this, all right? And it really intrigued everybody. So this is probably why this is coming up. Most people start off investing, getting the cheapest thing they can find, okay? So that they can at least get a property under the belt. And sometimes they're leveraged pretty highly, maybe 90%, maybe more, because a lot of the techniques that are taught are focused on being highly leveraged. Okay, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I am going to say is this: when you're constantly highly leveraged, what that means is you have little equity in the property or properties. And when you have little equity, that generally also is associated with lower cash flow levels. You have less net operating income coming in. So as a result, it would take you quite a long time to eventually build up enough substantial wealth and income to be able to retire. All right, now I'm going to give you a mathematical description of this in a minute. I just want to give you the graph first. So by contrast, if you force yourself to be patient and only buy the next bigger property, in this case go from a single to a duplex, and then save up that cash flow and put any other money you have into it, and then the next one buy a fourplex, okay? In other words, we're only buying the next bigger property. Then you save up your cash flow, all right, from both properties, all 6 units, okay, to eventually go out there and buy the eightplex, right? At first it is slow. That's why this parabola starts off slow. It definitely starts off slow, no doubt about it, okay? But over time it picks up steam. And what happens is, as you accumulate units, okay, you have more cash flow coming in on a monthly basis. So what happens is your projection of growth starts to turn, all right? It goes from being horizontal to vertical. And you get this 16 unit, all right? And now you've got 16, 8, that's 24, 28, you got 30 units bringing in rents. Okay, 30 units bringing in rents that you accumulate. Don't take any money out yet, just keep banking it and save it for the next deposit. And you'll find yourself over time buying bigger properties and eventually get to the point where this thing's feeding itself. Does this take time? It sure does. But I can tell you, this will end up being a faster path to wealth than this will any day of the week. If you think about it, if you were to require 30 single family homes, all right, that would take quite a long time. Using this approach with multi-units, you can acquire 30 units with only 4 moves, not 30 moves, but 4 moves, saving all those closing costs, everything. And so what happens, Billy, is over time, it is a game of patience. But generally speaking, after a couple of years, you've got enough income coming in here that will speed up the process. You can certainly keep buying 8-plexes or keep buying 4-plexes, but the point is that will be more of a linear graph. It'll be a straight line going up from left to right, of course, okay? But this is more like a parabola. And once it turns the corner, Billy, and for everybody else, man, this will change. It'll change your life, quite frankly. You'll find yourself having larger properties, bringing in more cash flow. Quite frankly, the rents usually go up better on these properties, and the values increase more on these properties. You can start to pay off smaller ones if you want. That's what I did. Take the excess cash flow to pay off the next one, and then take that excess cash flow from both of these to pay off that one. You get on a cash basis, which I do recommend you doing over time. All right, then now you're calling the shots. Now you can borrow, but only borrow strategically, and not borrow from need. This down here, this is borrowing because you have to borrow. All right. You start doing this, you get to the point where you're borrowing not because you need to borrow, but borrowing because it's a strategic move. You're borrowing strategically. And by the way, you can get a commercial line of credit eventually across your portfolio to help you ramp up the process, right? So again, I'm not saying don't borrow. What I'm saying is borrow strategically. Yes, you're going to have to be patient to get to that point, but I'll tell you this: you do this, I guarantee you, over the same amount of time, this will outperform this every day of the week, okay? So let me pull the panel back over, look for questions before I move on, because I just gave you another good chunk of stuff to think on there. And it's, for me, it was, quite frankly, for Billy and everybody else, man, it was a leap of faith for me, because I couldn't, my field of vision wouldn't grasp this. You know, my mentor kept telling me this, and I had to actually experience it myself and do the game of patience for about 3 years before I started really seeing a substantial. But I tell you what, I'm so glad I did, because 3 years is going to go by fast, and the next 3 years will go by even faster. Okay, so Billy, I'm going to share this because you typed it in there, so I'm assuming it's okay to share it with everybody on the question here. Okay, so Billy says, or is stating, I have 3 single-family homes and 1 duplex, so a total of 5 units. And the duplex I have is much more work. I can't imagine 4 or 8 units. And don't you need a lot more money and reserves for properties with more units? Where everything's, Billy, everything is relative. And another factor here that's kind of I may not have highlighted it so much, Billy, that I'm going to go ahead and do it now because it is important. These properties are generally better properties, right? They're all brick, you know, Traco windows, nice landscaping, off-street parking. And this is also important. They're usually strategically placed around university systems, hospital systems, you know, high-tech office parks, things like that. All right. Whereas these properties, the little teeny single-family homes, are generally, in order to purchase them at a price that allows you to cash flow, they generally are not the greatest properties. I mean, they're often sometimes in areas that are, you know, there can be some tough areas, right? These properties are generally in better areas. So what happens is, Billy, again, this is kind of a mind shift. You buy better properties with less deferred maintenance in better areas. And over time, and again, yeah, it's more expensive up front, I will guarantee you that. But believe me, over time, you actually will have less money going out per property. I mean, I can tell you the 78-unit apartment complex I had, man, the per unit expense and the per unit capital reserves was less than all the other properties we had, you know. I mean, everything is 1 set of boilers, 1 parking lot, 1 set of roofs, you know, it's just, there's less, all brick. I mean, it's just, you know, far less work per unit. So always think about the per unit relationship here, Billy. So if you think about, yeah, 8 units is more work than one single family home. Yeah, it absolutely is. An 8-unit building is going to take more effort than a single family home, but you've got rents coming in from 8 units, okay? And potentially 1 roof, right? So in any case, a great question, and everybody goes through that too, that same exact logic you just went through. So welcome aboard, brother. Okay, Billy, let's see, it says it's okay to share that. Okay, Michael. Hey, Michael, did you say that we can eventually get a commercial line of credit? If so, can you elaborate? Yeah. So Michael, When I first got into this, I had people tell me, well, you can't ever get a commercial loan on an existing building that already has a loan on it. And I believe them. And then all of a sudden I realized years later, when I had a pretty sizable portfolio and I had a substantial amount of equity in it, I wanted to get a line of credit, okay? And somebody suggested, well, why don't you get a commercial line of credit? And I said, well, I didn't think I could. And they said, well, baloney, you just got to go to the right lender. So I found a guy who's he does part-time private lending, but he also works with commercial lenders, commercial banks. So he arranged for me to get a commercial line of credit that encompassed the equity across my portfolio. All right. So yes, did I put my portfolio at risk? I sure did, because I took a line of credit against the whole thing. But that line of credit was a substantial amount of money, which allowed me to go out and buy a much bigger property. Okay. And once I bought that bigger property and raised the rents, and I did some work. I did some strategic improvements, raised all the rents, and in a short period of time, that building was worth a whole lot more. And when it was, I went to a bank, got a brand new first mortgage on that property, and paid off the line of credit. But because it was a line of credit, I was able to keep using it. So a lot of your wins, Michael, and for everybody, are going to be because you don't let yourself get stuck in the world, the world that you see on the surface. Okay, there's a lot of limiting beliefs and misinformation. Once you start networking and participating and being part of this awesome business, you'll find the right people. I mean, in fact, I can tell you, we don't use the big giant lenders. We don't use Bank of America, Wells Fargo. We don't use any of those guys. Matter of fact, please write this down. We encourage you, because this is what works, to use community banks. Okay, usually small local community banks, and we specifically like the community banks who are also portfolio lenders. Man, they make it so much easier. So your portfolio lender doesn't sell their mortgages, so they have more latitude in who they make loans to. Contrast that with a big giant commercial bank like Wells Fargo, Bank of America. They are selling their mortgages, so they have to follow FHA guidelines, which tells them they've got to use asset managers when they have non-performing assets, and they also have basically models that they have, and if you don't fit the model, they kick you out, right? With a community bank, they actually look at you and the project on an individual basis, and if it works, it works. They're going to get the loan. Okay. Now the cool thing up in Canada is we don't sell our mortgages up there. It's not like the States. Everybody's a portfolio lender. All right. So but the difference in Canada is, for everybody on the phone here on the webinar from Canada, is it actually is a little bit tougher to start investing in Canada as far as getting loans for investment properties. They scrutinize you more. All right. And that's because they're portfolio lenders. They don't sell their mortgages, right? But the reality is the more you invest, just like in the States, it actually does become easier to get the loans. In fact, the lenders will call you instead of you calling them, right? So just know this, it does get easier, really for everybody here. So in any case, let me move on to the next question here, because I think there was another one. Okay, Genevieve. Hi, Genevieve. FYI, RPR will not let you log in if you don't have a NR, DSID, and MLS ID. Yeah, so you have to be a member. So Genevieve, you have to be a member of a board. NARs, you have to be a member of a board. And RPR, as far as I know, Genevieve, is really a U.S. tool. I've never personally used it or tried to use it in Canada. So thank you for bringing it up. But in any case, hey, Billy, let's do this. What I want you to do is take what I showed you here and do your own exercise. This is what I did. Look at the horizontal path there, Brian, the little properties, single-family homes, and so forth, and figure out, whatever, $100 a month cash flow after all expenses, okay, or whatever your actual history has been on that, and then take this model here where you actually put down 25% and you get a lower interest rate like 4.5%, 5%. Figure cash flow there per unit, 200 per unit, okay? So this will be 400 cash flow. The fourplex will be 800 cash flow. Eightplex will be 1600 cash flow. This is per month, by the way. 16 unit, 3200 per month cash flow. And do the math over, say, 4 moves. Say this is 4, maybe this takes you 4 years. Let's just be real conservative. Add up the numbers and see how fast you can make this thing go, and go up to the point where maybe you get a 32, 64, 128 unit building, and then down here do the same thing, $100 a month cash flow over 128 single family homes, and see how long that takes you, and then compare the two, and you'll see why this works. Okay, it's a great exercise. That's exactly what I did, by the way, years ago. Okay, so this is Gregory. Let's see. All right, Gregory, is there any restriction on Canadians buying property in the United States and to use portfolio lenders? Well, Gregory, of course, I live in Canada part-time, and of course I live in the U.S. part-time. So in the States, every state has its own set of rules for foreign investors. Now the good news is we've got a lot of Canadians investing in the United States, but each state will have its own set of rules, okay? And you can find that information quite easily. In fact, we have somebody we're paying right now to gather all that information. He's working on it state by state, and we're going to put it on the website. The reason is we have a lot of foreign investors in actually both U.S. and Canada. In fact, you'd be surprised how many foreign investors invest in Canada. But for the sake of the question here, you'd have to go to the state and see what the rules are as far as citizenship, country of residency, requirements. A lot of the lenders, Gregory, will ask you to have a lot of money in reserves, okay, before they'll give you a loan on an investment property. A lot of it depends on the size of the property. But in Canada, you've got to have 6 months in reserves to buy a property, an investment property in Canada too, typically. Scotiabank, TD, a lot of those guys require 6 months in reserve. So if you go to the States and they say, well, you've got to have 6 months in reserve before we'll give you a loan, they actually, not that much, you're probably, it's not like it's a big deal. But the other thing too is the answer is yes, they will lend you money. The U.S. banks will definitely lend foreigners money. It happens all the time. And if you want, we can help you find the right contacts in whatever state you're investing in, because we've got students literally in all 48 of the lower 48 states, and all of them have contacts in the lending world and the title companies. Okay, so don't ever go about strike it on your own. Just raise your hand, ask for help, and we'll get you the help you need. But bottom line is yes, you can as a Canadian, you can borrow money from U.S. banks. Just know that each state's going to have its own set of rules and regulations. Okay. Okay, Billy, what are you crazy? Get a 30-unit building in 4 years? It's funny, Billy, is when I first started, I was really conservative, and I just assumed it would take. I just assumed I was going to be doing this forever. That's what I thought. In fact, I did it for 17 years. And I was just buying the little things, anything up to 4 units, because that's what I could afford, and I could buy fast, and there was a lot of them. And there's a lot to be said for that. But when I realized there was people I was observing, I was using my license to serve other investors, and I recognized that some of them are doing this. I mean, that's who I attracted actually in the beginning, but a lot of them are doing this, and I started paying attention to what they were doing, and I realized, well, number one is they were patient, and they didn't just hastily buy the next thing because they could afford it. They waited until they could get the one they wanted, in this case like a fourplex, right? And then they just banked their money, right? They didn't touch it, and they improved it. There's the value, and over time they'd have all the cash flow saved up and possibly pull out some equity, right? And buy the next property. And by the way, they were not driving on a pickup truck fixing stuff. That was the thing that really struck me, Billy, is I'm driving on a pickup truck fixing stuff. These guys were not doing that. They weren't wearing jeans and sweatshirts. They were wearing like nice clothes, okay? And I decided I better pay attention to what they were doing, and it freaked me out. I thought there's no way they're making more money because they're spending more money. It just didn't make sense. But over time, my mentor said, well, here's why. It is a game of patience. Absolutely, no doubt about it. And it'll start slowly, but over time it will definitely pick up steam. Um, so it definitely is going to, it's a mind shift. um, let's see, Billy Money. So you're also buying out of state. So Billy, you can definitely buy, I'm assuming you're a U.S. citizen, so you're buying in other states. Um, they will definitely lend you money, okay? But just like a Canadian, they may want to see more information. They may want to have you have more in reserves, things like that. And I recommend, this is for everybody here. What I did, guys, is I actually partnered with a couple of the community banks, and not just one. Because they change. Um, see, what happens is they have different buckets, different silos. A silo for duplexes, a silo for fourplexes, a silo for strip malls, a silo for single-family homes, different price ranges. And if one of those silos gets too full, like if they've made too many loans for fourplexes, they'll stop making loans for fourplexes. You won't even know why. They'll just turn you down. Another thing that could happen is you reach what's called the loans to one ratio. And what that means is no bank can loan more than can lend more than so much to any one borrower. And it's based on their capitalization rate. Okay. So I learned all this stuff and I thought, well, I better have a couple of different lenders I can work with. That's what I did. Um, so that should help you a lot. But what I want to do is this. I want to go into Gail's email. She's asking about the retainer. Okay, we just got one more question. Hang on one second. This is from Michael. Hang on, Michael. Hang on one second. Speaking of patience, how long did it take the investors that didn't invest according to the model to buy the next property? Well, at the beginning, like it would take you. I mean, everybody's different, Michael. This to go from a duplex to a fourplex, that might take you a year. It may take somebody else 6 months. It might take somebody else 3 months. Everybody's different. But the point is that frequency of purchases increases over time. So in other words, to get to the next property, that's going from a 16 to a 32, generally will not take as long as to go from a 2 to a 4. That's what we observe. So over time, now obviously there's the factor of numbers of units plays into it too. So if you're just going from 8 to 12 units, that'll be much faster than going from 8 to 30 units. You follow what I'm saying? So the next move, how big that move is going to have a factor in how fast you get there. So in other words, if this was going from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 like that, obviously that path will be faster than doubling the number of units, right? This is just a model. So excellent question, by the way. Okay, so Gail, let's get to Gail. All right, Gail is asking about having a retainer in her agreement with her investors. So Gail, hopefully I think you're on. I think I saw your login here. Couple things. This is for everybody here, and even investors. You want to pay attention to this because remember, these tools were used in the investor world before they were ever used in the agent world. So, in the world of agency, when I'm working with a new investor, number one, I always interview them first. If they respond to my marketing or I meet them at a workshop or whatever the case is, I always interview them first. And so, Gail, what I do at the end of the interview, once you understand what they want to accomplish and what they have to work with, I will ask them to email me with a recap of our conversation. Now, remember, I'm an investor too, so I wanted to make sure these guys were serious, and they not only were they serious, they could actually walk the talk and take action. So I'd have them send me an email recapping the conversation, right? And if they ever ask me why, which very rarely happened, I just said, simple. The more I know about you, the easier it is for me to help you. And by the way, I want to hear from your own words how you interpreted our conversation, what you get out of it. I want to hear in their words, okay? Which is very important because you can easily have two different interpretations of the same conversation. Now, Gail, a couple things. One, what that demonstrated to me was that they were serious. If they sent the email back, I knew three things. Number one is they were committed because it's actually a commitment test. Number two is they were engaging with me on an even level because they realized I could actually walk the talk. And number three is they were action takers, all right? And I wanted to have all three character traits in place before I work with somebody. So the people that did not email me back, in the beginning, I kept trying to work with them, only to find out that they demonstrated on the first view what they were, how they were going to behave. It's like pulling teeth. So I realized only work with the people that responded to me with the email. Now, going on to the retainer. There's different types of investing strategies. If I had attracted somebody who has absolutely no money and they're trying to use all the different techniques like buying on terms, using the owner financing, all that stuff, I realized very quickly it's going to take a lot more work to help those folks get into a property, which means I'm going to have to work a lot harder to get paid. And a lot of times they just didn't have the patience. They didn't have the perseverance and the determination. So what I started doing is I said, okay, I'll work with you under these circumstances, but I have a retainer. Here's how I work. I can help you out. I can give you all the tools in the world you could possibly use, get you the inventory, but I have a retainer to protect myself in case you don't follow through. So the retainer is X, and depending on your marketplace, it could be $500 or it could be $5,000. But I would ask for a retainer, and the retainer gets applied to the first purchase that they make, the commission on that property. So that retainer gets held in an escrow account at the broker. That's where it gets held. Okay. Now the good news is very rarely would anybody balk at that. They might question it, but I would say, look, here's the deal. You can work with any old agent out there you want to, but do they know how? And let's say we both have a hammer and a nail. Do they know what nail to use, what hammer to use, how hard to hit the nail, and where to hit the nail? Well, I do. So you can spin your wheels and work with somebody who works with owner occupants and only knows how to point out the color of the carpet, or you can work with me, who's an investor, and I know what I'm doing and I can walk the talk. You decide, and then that would get the deal done. Another thing I did, Gail, and for everybody here, particularly those of you who are licensed, I would also charge a minimum commission, because some of the properties those guys were buying, the ones I just described, were the ones that were the cheapest, because when you're using terms and other people's money, you're often left buying the properties that nobody else wants, and they can be smaller price properties, and I didn't want to work that hard for less money. So I had a minimum commission, and the minimum commission kicked in if the commission paid from the listing agent didn't cover my minimum commission. And when people would question that, I would say it's simple. You can hire bird dogs to go find properties for you and pay them 10%, which is what they charge from the local clubs, or you can pay me, whatever the minimum was, and that's the only if the minimum kicked in. Okay, let's say my minimum was $3,000, and then they only paid me $2,000. That buyer would pay $1,000. I'd say, look, you've only got to kick in $1,000. That's part of your project cost. Okay, and the fact is, if you had a bird dog do it for you, it would have cost you 10%. Okay, and if you're selling your property, I can get it sold more quickly, generally for more money. So in any case, that's where the minimum commission came in, and that's really how you sell it. You don't do it for everybody, but only for the ones where you feel like you're going to be working your butt off for very little money. Okay. With the people building portfolios like this, generally you didn't have to do that because the minimum never kicked in, and quite frankly, they're buying better properties. So, Gail, I hope that answers your question. The other part of your question, Gail, was researching tools and researching towns, and we did go over that at the beginning of the webinar tonight. So I showed you this here. Okay. We also went over these two things here. This is a list of resources for you to help research towns, and depending on where you are. All right. There's all kinds of tools you can use. You can also use, by the way, guys, write this down. It's funny because sometimes they're good information, and they're the ones we've all heard of. Wikipedia is a great little tool. Sometimes the data is a little old, but the descriptions they give you, like the types of businesses that are in the town, you could do Wikipedia on any county or any town, and they tell you what colleges, universities are in the towns, what hospital systems, what the other business mix is, if there's high tech, if there's manufacturing, things like that. So Wikipedia is a great tool. Also, you can use city data. City data generally is about a year or two behind on their stats, but the other data is pretty good. City data tells you a percentage of people renting, average and median home prices, population, all kinds of great information. So they're not on here. Just write that down. City data and Wikipedia. Okay. Matter of fact, maybe we'll just add those to the to the data sets. I'll send that email to Beverly and Paul. So in any case, let me go back to the question box because we're getting close to the end here, and I want to make sure we get all the questions answered. Let's see, we got Cedric. Hey, Cedric, how you doing, buddy? Cedric is asking, how do you have, Gary, do you have a form for the retainer? Now, what I did, Cedric, I apologize, I didn't mention this. You want to use your standard buyer's agency agreement form, your buyer's agency contract, and then in there, if there's not room on it, there should be a place where you could have an attachment, say C attachment or Exhibit A or Addendum A, and then the addendum is where you would talk about the retainer and or the minimum commission. Okay. And by the way, also for Cedric and everybody else out there, I would make my buyer's agency agreements survive transfer of contract. So if you're working with a wholesaler and they sell the contract, your rights as an agent transfers with that transfer or the assignment of the contract. Always remember that. That's a great little technique. Okay. Okay. Well, listen, guys. That's the last of the questions. I appreciate your participation tonight, and I appreciate the emails from Gail and from Billy for the subject matter. Please do your homework. Grab these tools off the website. Start playing around with them. Use them. Because I tell you what, information is absolutely vital. Education plus information gives you the tools you need. And of course, the good news is the right education shows you how to get the information and how to use it. And the third thing is you and I taking action. That's really why we're here. So some of you are due for some strategy calls. Let's get together and get you guys to the next step in your path, whichever that is. All right, and I will look forward to seeing you all next week. Which is going to be Tuesday night. Tuesday night I'll be in Braintree, Massachusetts, just below Boston, right on the water there. Same time, same place, but it's Tuesday night next week. And also, real quick, the following week, guys, on the 25th, I'll be back up in Ontario. We do have a special guest. His name is Brian Devine. He does marketing for dentists. He's going to show us what language to use when we're trying to attract dentists to work with to raise funds for either investing for ourselves or to be clients to buy properties, okay? He's also looking to break into the chiropractor world, so you might be able to help there too. So definitely stay tuned to that because it's going to help your businesses to be able to attract and know how to talk to these folks, okay? All right, well, in the meantime, hope you have an awesome weekend, and God bless all of you and all your families, particularly those of you who are in Texas and Florida. Our hearts go out to you. I know there's a lot of help down there. I've been watching the news and quite proud of all the help that's been sent down there from just about everybody, actually. So you guys have an awesome weekend. God bless you all, and we'll see you next week. Okay, bye-bye.